My admiral father grabbed my champagne and yelled during our Annapolis gala, "Stop embarrassing the family. Your sister inherited this." My mother leaned in. Her icy whisper. Such a shame. They believed they were burying me that night. They didn't realize their shame would be my weapon. My name is Alex Morgan. I was a Navy combat operations officer for 15 years before turning 37. But tonight I was just a ghost in my family home. The Cole family house in Annapolis' vast hall was stifling with ancient money, glossy mahogany, and costly bourbon. I recognized the perfume of a legacy I was born into but never completely part of. In a corner I watched the deliberate pageantry. My father, retired Admiral Richard Morgan, is surrounded by men in suits and their wives in gorgeous clothes. I thought their laughter and grins were too loud, overly bright. I was the only one without a script in the performance. Nobody spoke to me. Their eyes passed me like a piece of elegant, slightly out-of-place furniture as they nodded politely. I ate a Maryland crab cake at a small empty table. The intense savory taste of Old Bay spice didn't cut through my throat's harshness. The oil-painted Coleman images on the walls silently judged me, their naval dress suits and harsh, merciless gazes. They designed this dynasty. Just a footnote they wanted to delete. My father stood in the middle of the room, tapping a crystal glass for attention. The talk stopped instantly. "Friends, colleagues," he said in his commanding baritone. "Thank you for celebrating with us. Family." His eyes traversed the room, resting on Sophie, my younger sister. A genuine dazzling smile lit up his face and, "My daughter Sophie is our family gem." He discussed her culinary career, forthcoming restaurant, and wonderful life. "She was the pure Cole spirit," he said. He never looked at me. It was like I never existed. My father's freshly retired acquaintance Rear Admiral Thompson clapped him on the shoulder. "A nice girl, Richard. A nice girl. What about your other daughter? What's Alex doing now?" A short nearly. The slightest hint of irritation on my father's face was quickly erased. "Ah, Alex," he muttered dismissively. "After being unable to continue her naval career, Alex is pursuing personal projects. A noble little venture with some boats, I believe, a quiet life." The lie hung in the air. A poisoned dart aimed directly at my heart. Unable to continue. 15 years of service, deployments, and sacrifices I could never speak of, all erased with a single. I looked at my mother, Ella Laner, standing beside him. She gave a serene, unwavering smile and a slight nod of agreement, her loyalty to his narrative absolute. The hurt was physical, a knot tightening in my chest. I swallowed it down, my training kicking in. Maintain composure, duty calls. The polite thing to do was to congratulate my sister, blocking me. He gripped my wrist tightly, more firmly than necessary, a clear attempt to assert control. He leaned in, his voice no longer charming hosts, but a low growl of contempt. He took my wine glass. "That's enough," he hissed, just loud enough for the nearest guests to hear, their smiles freezing. "Sophie's legacy. Do you not comprehend?" The crimson wine in his glass sloshed, a tiny violent storm mirroring the chaos inside me. The public humiliation was a branding iron against my skin. Then came the final killing blow. My mother glided to his side. She didn't look at me. Instead, she looked at the lapel of my dress as if she'd seen a stain. She reached out, but not to comfort. Her rough fingers aggressively straightened the fabric. "You've disappointed this family." The whisper hurt more than the shout. I was declared useless by the two individuals who were supposed to protect me. Among inquiring and pitying steps, I stood paralyzed. I didn't weep. Soldiers learn not to express emotion. My heart was replaced by a chilly, hollow emptiness. I vaguely heard the serenity prayer, a lifeline I couldn't comprehend. "God give me serenity." I gently freed my wrist from my father. The circle of light and laughter was never meant for me, so I turned my back and left with my head held high. On the chilly marble floor, I took measured, methodical steps. My universe had just broken into 1,000 irreparable pieces inside. As I approached the door, all I could see was my father's study's wall of honor, packed with generations of Coleman's accomplishments, and the big hole where my name should be. Driving back to my modest apartment was a swirl of headlights and shadows. My hands were solid on the wheel, my posture straight. However, my father's words and mother's whisper replayed inside. From boyhood, The wall of honor in my father's study terrified me. It wasn't wall. The map showed my family's expectations. I was blank on that map. The first time I comprehended this was at 16. Home from state marksmanship competition. My palm cools the heavy gold-plated metal. I outshot every boy and girl. State champion. I offered it to my father, my chest bursting with pride I needed him to share. He held the medal, weighed it, and nodded non-committally. Good, Alex. Very exact. Taking care to hang a framed photo of Sophie in the most conspicuous location on the wall. After winning a regional competition, she wore a lovely white outfit and played a grand piano gracefully. He leveled the frame, saying, "This is more elegant, Alex. Grace is needed for the Cole legacy." The word was elegance. My effort, discipline, and gunpowder accomplishments were never elegant. Not the right kind of excellent. It was a recurring lesson. Memory moved. Fast forwarding to years ago, Thanksgiving. I was 30, a lieutenant commander returning after a 6-month Middle East tour. I expected a nice welcome home, if not a hero's. My mother pulled me aside when the guests came. She asked Alex, "Alex dear, be a help and clear the coats, would you?" As Sophie and her affluent fiancé courted senators and their spouses. But I did as instructed, swallowing my disappointment. Dinner was the real humiliation. The main dining table with the family's finest silver and china was filled. My mother, who had studied the seating arrangement, gazed at me without guilt. She cheerfully exclaimed, "Alex, there's a seat for you with the kids." Kids' table, tiny one's table. I, a U.S. Navy commanding officer, was sitting on a folding chair between a 9-year-old nephew creating a mashed potato fort and a 12-year-old niece on her phone. I saw my family toast Sophie's true accomplishments with crystal goblets across the room. Their glasses clinking shattered my self-esteem. Even my proudest day was taken. I graduated from Naval Academy. Annapolis was full of hope that day. I stood in my crisp dress whites with a commission and a future in service. Although my parents were there, they didn't see the parade. On Bon Appetit's beautiful cover, magazine with a multi-page spread on Sophie's inventive cooking. As my name was called and I crossed the stage to get my graduation, I looked down at the pleased relatives. My father paces while on his phone. My mother pointed out a magazine photo to a friend. My sister's accomplishment overshadowed my 4-year triumph. My existence wasn't as important. The quietest memory was awful. It was a hostile zone satellite phone call. My one monthly call. Poor connection, tight air of implicit danger. A familiar voice and support were all I needed. My mother answered quickly and distractedly. "Alex, everything okay? I'm planning Sophie's engagement party. Is this crucial? Is this crucial?" I always faced danger, death, and asked if my call mattered. "Mom, everything's okay." I claimed the falsehood tasted like ash. "Well, good. You know how. Everything is great here." Their greatness excluded my safety. My life or death world of split-second judgments and fire-forged loyalties did not exist in their flawless polished universe. Pain must exist. Quantico drill instructor barked at me. But suffering is an option. For years I picked suffer in silence, hoping they'll see me. Driving in the dark, I realized that day would never come. However, one clear image arose from the awful memories. Uncle Rear Admiral Franklin Cole, my father's younger brother. He was quiet and thoughtful, the only one who ever looked at me instead than through me. He took me away from the family noise after my first deployment. He stared me down, a steady, compassionate glance. He responded, "What you do out there, Alex?" Quietly and sincerely. "Not everyone can. So be proud even if no one else is." That one sentence, that one instant of genuine realization, saved my self-respect from falling into their disdain. The tiny light was enough to navigate. My engine hummed as I parked in my inexpensive apartment complex. Before cutting, past ghosts whirled around me. My uncle's comments gave me a twinge of strength, but all the other memories crushed me. A decision, the drill instructor said. I had to decide. What should I live for if I can never get their approval? The daybreak over Chesapeake Bay and the fragrance of cheap, strong coffee with salt and damp would started my new existence. I worked from a rundown sailboat I dubbed the Resolute, more of a commitment than a name. The modest galley table was my workspace. My small bunk bed and mocking red ledger numbers dominated my mornings. Financially, the Chesapeake Bay Watchers program, my life purpose, was failing. The difference between my old and new lives was a painful pill I took every morning. After strategic planning meetings in a guided missile destroyer's command center, I bartended 4 evenings a week at a raucous bar, docile pub to buy ropes and motor parts. However, as Theodore Roosevelt stated, the arena player deserves praise. Though exhausted, broke, and alone I was in the arena, I resisted falling. The Atracis teens on my assignment today were extremely difficult. Their self-appointed commander was 16-year-old Noah Carter, who had an anchor-sized chip on his shoulder and defiance in his eyes. His father had fallen, soldier, a youngster drowning in anger-infused grief. As I demonstrated a basic knot, he measured me up. "You're going to teach us to sail?" he mocked. "You look like some unemployed soccer mom." Friends laughed. The old Alex, the one desperate for approval, would have flinched. The naval commander remained calm. I threw him a small rope tied in a coil. "My advice: prove me incorrect. Even voice. On a bite, tie a figure 8. My training taught me not to fight turmoil with disorder. You handle it confidently." The day was a slow willpower battle. The ringtone on my phone interrupted me. My mother. My chest caught a little spark of naive hope. Maybe she called to check in. Maybe. Hope vanished when she said, "Alex," she said authoritatively, "Mrs. Vanderbilt contacted to complain about your old boats parked near their yacht club are a nuisance. Can you relocate them? We can't bother important people." No questions regarding my health. My purpose, my life, transformed to an unattractive annoyance to her wealthy friends. My lungs emptied completely. "Yes, mother," I answered flatly. A familiar bone-deep exhaustion hovered over me. Late afternoon, the sky turned bruised purple. Wind picked up, unexpected gusts across the bay. The Resolute jerked, its aged timbers protesting. Kids panicked. They lost their confidence to wide-eyed dread. Noah Carter, the mocker, stood still at the wheel, pallid. It was my thing. I was home during the storm. "Noah Carter, eyes on me." I shouted over the wind howl. The voice of command demanded obedience. "Take charge and steer into the wind." My orders were exact and clear. I told them which lines to tighten and which sails to reef. Fear gave way to focus. Under my authority, pandemonium was organized. Noah Carter, trembling, followed my instructions with white knuckles on the wheel. Not just steering a boat. He was winning despite his dread. The excitement calmed down once we returned the battered sailboat to the pier. The kids were. They fell silent, their defiance replaced by deep respect. Noah Carter turned to me, humbled rather than challenging. Swallowed hard. "Thank you, Lieutenant Commander," muttered. The first time anyone had called me by my rank with genuine respect since I left the Navy, not with pity or disgust, but with the earned regard of a subordinate to his commanding officer. It hit me like a rogue wave. I glanced at the strong, shattered youngster who had found a home, self-image on water. A warm smile went across my face. I hadn't felt that in years. A quiet, firm pride unrelated to my family's approbation. Standing on the deck of my rundown boat with a crew of strange kids, I knew this difficult, lonely route was worth it. Building my legacy. Legacy may be a soul mark rather than a monument. Just when I thought my world was tiny, in my lonely boat, it opened up in ways I never expected. A man arrived to the docks unannounced with a reporter's notepad and pen. Logan Hayes had Washington Post press credentials. I anticipated a brief interview. I got a witness. Elias observed and asked questions. He silently observed me all day. He saw me fight a cranky, grease-covered engine. He watched me gently coax a shy 15-year-old girl into nautical chart reading. He observed me stand firm and serene. The harbor manager didn't see an unemployed soccer mom when he bullied me about docking fees. He witnessed an officer leading a soul-saving operation. I finally felt seen. The real surprise came that evening when I returned to the Resolute, fatigued and bone-weary, to find a hefty pot on the deck. I raised it. Lid and the creamy smell of New England clam chowder flooded the air. It was next to a warm sourdough loaf. Mrs. Patel, the owner of a tiny cafe down the pier whose grandson was in my program, sent it. A handwritten note was under the pot on a slip of paper. It read, "Thank you for not giving up on my boy." I stared at the paper and the soup steam, and something inside me cracked after years of freezing. I sobbed on the deck. Not quiet, regulated weeping but wailing sobs. It was simple compassion from a stranger, yet it felt more like love than anything my mother had done in a decade. It was nourishment for working-class folks who had little but contributed plenty. I recognized then that dignity was unrelated to money or rank. It was about kindness and loyalty. As if the cosmos thought I'd had enough solitude, my former ghost returned the next day. My former destroyer chief engineer, Master Chief Petty Officer Daniel Jason, was on the pier with a duffel bag. He drove 6 hours from Norfolk to find me after hearing about my work through the grapevine after retiring. He glanced at the rust and frayed wires on the elderly unstable engines I was trying to save. He shook his head slowly. "Lieutenant Commander," he said, "I heard the engine room's steady, capable rumbling. This setup is an absolute mess. Let me take a look." No long-winded questioning about what happened. No pity, just calm, efficient soldier loyalty. He rolled up his sleeves, grabbed wrenches from his bag and started. I felt less suffocated by my continual loneliness then. As the Chesapeake sun turned orange and purple that evening, Elias sat with me on the deck and spread a few documents between us. "Your discharge papers are unusual, Alex," he said, his journalistic curiosity now mixed with genuine concern. "They've been sealed at a level that makes no sense for an honorable discharge. Smells like a cover-up." He leaned forward, his voice low. "Have you heard of the Fat Noah Carter-Nard scandal? A defense contractor who bought off high-ranking naval officers with bribes, lavish parties, and illicit favors. I think you saw something," Elias theorized, his eyes holding mine, "or knew something they didn't want you to talk about. And I think they sacrificed you to keep it quiet." It was a lightning bolt. For years, I had internalized the narrative that I was the failure. For the first time, someone suggested that I wasn't the problem. Happened to my career. Later that night, Elias, Mark, and I sat on the Resolute's deck, sharing Mrs. Patel's chowder out of mismatched bowls and drinking cheap beer from a can. Surrounded by my old comrades' quiet loyalty and my new one's fierce intelligence, I felt a sense of peace and belonging that I had never felt in the Cole Mansion's opulent halls. "Alex, your story is more than just about these kids," he said, his voice serious. "There's something bigger here, and I think it has something to do with a defense contractor named Brandon Wolf. I want to invite you to an event on his yacht. It's time to stop running from your past and start." Stepping with Elias onto the Psy Odyssey's gangplank, I felt tactical unease. The yacht wasn't just luxurious. It was a floating fortress of wealth designed to impress and intimidate. Teak decks gleamed under soft lighting. Waiters circulated with trays of crystal champagne flutes. Brandon Wolf, our host, appeared before us. He was exactly as Elias's files had described him. A man with a predator's smile, polished surfaces, and cold, empty eyes. "Lieutenant Commander Cole," he purred, taking my hand. His grip was firm, but his skin felt strangely lifeless. "Your father informed me about your passions," the pause, the emphasis, a masterclass in disguised insult. "He claimed to know me." Family disappointment. My relatives arrived before I could react. They had great timing and brilliant, brittle smiles. Not cold this time. They sucked. They were nice. My mother grabbed my arm, pressing into my bicep. "For a few hours, Alex is delightful," she muttered breathlessly, eyeing Croft. "Our partner-Croft dynamics is crucial. Sophie's future hinges on this." My father then put a hefty, patronizing hand on my shoulder. He responded, "Daughter, consider it a mission." With aching heart. "Fulfill your purpose." The components fit sickeningly. Not a guest. I was pawn transported here to complete Cole family unity tableau. To facilitate a business deal. A wave of nausea hit me. There was more than neglect. This was deliberate use. Find the danger. My training voice whispered, assess, neutralize. Later, Croft trapped me at the railing while I watched the black ocean. His drink was 25-year-old single malt scotch. The offer was made. I declined. "I hear you were a great commander." He swirled the golden liquid. "A true warrior, yet you went another way. Sometimes the hardest choices are best for everyone." His remarks were subtle threats, demonstrating his strength. His question tested my response. I retained his stare. Mask on my face, of neutrality, my thoughts a tactical map documenting every detail. Dinner was the pretense's pinnacle. Sophie enthusiastically announced her Croft-funded Dubai restaurant opening. My father told a huge naval history story to flatter their sponsor. Laughing loudly, Croft stopped him. "Ah, the Navy," he shouted across the table. "So many secrets. Like those ghost ships that vanish without a trace." It was spoken with casual arrogance of coolness. Blood-chilled. He joked about ghost ships when we sat aboard one. Elias caught my sight across the clean table. He knew. We both knew. The audacity was staggering. A magician was brought out for post-D entertainment, so I took advantage. "Excuse me," I said, pretending to use the restroom. Instead of the guest apartments, I went to the service tunnels below deck. The air expanded, cooler, the fresh paint aroma not masking the subtle metallic rust flavor. Upper deck opulence was a thin veneer atop crumbling ancient work. My heels clicked on the metal flooring as I moved deliberately. I searched the bulkheads for something Elias had shown me on a blueprint. A small emergency control panel with a scrape near its ID plate. It was hidden under linen trolleys. Heart beat against body, ribs. I knelt, looking down the empty passage both ways. My hand was steady as I scraped the plate's thick glossy white paint with my fingernail. It peeled to show faint stamped characters and numbers. N377DDG. The world paused. Time, sound, and breath vanished. N377DDG was the USS Aaron's official hull number. Admiral Grant Mercer, my father's mentor and brother, commanded the guided missile destroyer, the ship that disappeared in a training mishap off Virginia 6 years ago, taking nearly 300 sailors with it. A tidal flood of horror hit me in that calm, sterile corridor. Not a cover-up. Not a commercial deal. A hidden tragedy. A yacht wasn't here. Someone must pay for the repainted tomb. I felt the steel deck pitching beneath me, kneeling in that clean service hallway. My reality lurches violently, not the sea. N377DG. Those numbers stuck with me. Horror-filled truth. USS Aaron. Painful, vivid memories of its commander, Captain James Holloway, returned. He was my father's mentor, a Navy icon with battleship-strength ethics. It was a falsehood to report his death and the deaths of nearly 300 sailors as a training mishap. A terrible falsehood. Ship wasn't sunk, its identity was taken and its steel skin painted in premium white. This floating castle was a luxury vessel for the corrupt and privileged. The initial shock, cold and sharp like a shard of ice in my heart, quickly melted into molten rage. It was a brutal rage I hadn't felt since the front. I stood stiffly, robotically, staring down an opponent to neutralize. Training shouted, "Maintain calm. Do not share your discovery." I had to return to party. I had to act regular. Walking back onto the upper deck was like emerging from a dark plunge into bright artificial light. As I straightened my outfit, my hands trembled before I focused. I had to appear unstressed. I passed the cigar lounge's open doors, which blew heavy, scented smoke and powerful men's shouts into my ears. Nighttime air. The sound stopped me dead. My father's voice, low and conspiratorial, stripped of all its public charm. "The past is best left buried, Julian," he said with stern pragmatism. "As long as it's promising. Sophie and family's future is bright." Croft laughed quietly in satisfaction. "Naturally, Admiral, a legacy must be preserved." My heart didn't rupture. Felt like a vice, forced breath from my lungs. My father knew about this crime. Yes, he agreed. His silence authorized it. He surrendered the truth, his men's dignity, and an entire ship's crew's life for his daughter's restaurant and the family's social status. My last protection, the desperate, childlike hope that he was uneducated, was destroyed. My breaking point. My guest cabin was my refuge. The lavish, small, prison-like room. I didn't light them. I sat on the edge of the nicely made bed, suffocated by quiet. I heard a faint rhythmic tapping. It sounded like a ghost sound from inside the wall in the ship's silence. Tap, 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 tap. Third short, long, short. SOA. Not an actual sound. Of course, my reasonable mind knew. I felt a scream echoing in my bones. The ghost of warning from this steel-tombed souls. Over 300 sailors cried out as their final burial place was desecrated and transformed into a rich man's playground. I kneeled and glanced under the massive custom-made bed frame, driven by an unfathomable urge to prove the evil I felt. They know 2 sentences were hastily carved into the metal. nearly undetectable in the shadows. Someone preceded me. Another cruise passenger had uncovered the truth and attempted a warning. They were hushed. I wouldn't. No more doubt or uncertainty. A defined goal erased the suffering. Elias gave me an encrypted satellite phone, comfortable in my hand. When I called Mark Jason, my fingers were steady. I'm Alex, Mark. Your location. I didn't sound like a broken daughter. Commanding officer's voice. Sharp, cold, and decisive. In Norfolk, Lieutenant, Commander. What's wrong? His voice gave me stability in my confusion. I'm on a ghost ship off the Virginia Capes, I said sharply. I need you in your best gear. We must work. I stopped explaining. It wasn't necessary. Mark replied instantly with the unflinching trust of a soldier for his co-worker. I agree, Elsie. Send me your coordinates. The call ended, and I stood and headed to the cabin's huge porthole. I saw myself in the dark glass, silhouetted against the distant beach lights. The victim vanished. I saw a warrior. The lady my father attempted to obliterate was gone. A U.S. naval officer replaced her. I remembered my commissioning oath. The same oath my father took to defend the U.S. Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I finally identified the adversary. Right here he was, ship with my dad's face. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have left or done what I did? Angered and grieving, I whispered a vow into the darkness. Father taught me honor. I'll teach him consequences now. My fight for justice began. The art of war teaches that all conflict is deceptive. I had to be the most convincing actress on this floating stage of lies for 12 hours. My mission began. I went to a prearranged service hatch on the lowest deck as an Atlantic squall provided cover. The approaching high-speed Zodiac was muffled by the wind and rain. Mark Jason, dressed in black, arrived quietly like a shadow. I guided him to the engine room through the maze of service passageways. I only know one yacht spot without surveillance cameras. The heat and noise made them unreliable. Mark halted when we entered the ship's metallic heart. He ignored custom-painted housings and polished chrome fittings. He passed them and examined the machine's bones. His hand touched a huge generator housing. He examined the pipelines, electrical conduits, and space architecture. His voice rumbled behind the engine's noise as he described an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer's power plant. No doubt about it, Lieutenant Commander. They gave her a gorgeous dress. The skeleton remains Navy. He gave me the final confirmation. My inner rage turned into a steadfast resolve. Elias was in his cabin reading financial and personnel papers on a securely protected laptop. 3 of us created an impromptu command cell. Suansu wrote, "Know your opponent and yourself, and you'll be safe in 100 years. Battles." Elias, our intelligence officer, mapped the enemy's shell firms, offshore accounts, and political connections to protect Brandon Wolfe. Our technical operations expert was Mark. His mind a living ship system plan. I commanded. In a clear, low voice, I said our goal was the original trip data recorder. VDR Aaron's black box. Only this evidence cannot be challenged or concealed. It'll hold ships, final minutes, bridge audio, everything. Mark nodded, frowning. VDRs are protected in hardened casings on DDGs, usually near the ship's central command. Croft would want it close yet hidden on a civilian retrofit. He displayed the yacht schematic on a tablet. I guess I know where. We sought a renovated storage room behind Croft's private entertainment lounge. I knew he called it his trophy room. We had to take the chance. The late-night crew change hit our move. Quiet passageways. When we approached the lounge, my stomach constricted. The room honored Croft's ego and desecrated nautical history. Genuine naval antiques adorned the walls like hunting trophies. A World War II battleship bell, an antique officer's sword, and a giant folded American flag in a shining position are the most prominent. Mahogany display case. The small metal inscription underneath it said, "Recovered from the USS Acheron." I was disgusted. Not only did Croft hide his guilt, he celebrated it by decorating his monument to greed with our nation's honor. Mark worked. He needed neither explosives nor force. Special electrical picks and a bypass device were his tools. He knelt before a smooth wall panel, his actions exact, economical. The wall slid aside with a few subtle clicks and a low electronic hum. revealing a small, dark, dusty chamber with a brilliant orange hardened metal box resting silently on a shelf. The VDR. It was whole. Mark carefully connected a cable to the VDR's interface port with a portable data reader from his equipment. Lines of encrypted file folders appeared on the little screen. Mark muttered, awestruck, "We got it." The raw data is here, however. Cracking this encryption and transferring the files will take time and more processing power than I have. After hiding the VDR in Mark's duffel bag, we returned to my cabin. Box weight felt like 300 souls. With the weapon, we needed to assemble the missile. We heard a quiet but strong knock as we closed the cabin door. Blood-chilled. We froze. Elias peered through the door peephole. He seemed astonished and curious. Before cracking it, I saw Ella Lynn, a young cyber warfare specialist on the yacht's technical crew, in the corridor. At the gathering, her acute, perceptive eyes saw everything, missing nothing. She was smart and principled after graduating from the Naval Academy. She looked past Elias at me and whispered, "Lieutenant Commander," quietly, "this cabin has an unusual electricity draw. When you were away and Mr. Vance's terminal systems access request to the ship's archives. This isn't a yacht, but I'll help." She gambled her career. She completed the puzzle we didn't know we were missing. Avery helped us build a system stronger than Mark's portable. The four of us stood in the tight cabin, silently united against a massive crime. We had proof. We had technological knowledge. The plan existed. Avery might cut the yacht's internal network, giving us audiovisual control. Mark could decode and prepare VDR data. Elias opened a secure live channel to a trusted Naval Investigative Command contact. I would order. Elias grimaced at us as we made our choice. In a whisper he said, "This is it. We only have one shot to reveal this." Tomorrow night's gala features the show. Final Odyssey Gala was largest. A black tie gathering to honor Croft Dynamics' unholy alliance with my family's name. I was a ghost in a black dress at the back of the huge ballroom, my face a mask of serenity. I became an anomaly they couldn't ignore. Margaret, my mother, looked at me with malice while Sophie muttered. Their faces showed irritation and uncertainty. They didn't grasp why I stayed, a blight on their lovely evening. Father denied my existence. On a little elevated stage in the center of the room, Brandon Wolfe was in his element. His smooth, resonant voice came from the ship's high-tech sound system as he lectured. He declared that this cooperation is more than business, arms spread. A dedication to a stronger America. A tribute to honor, sacrifice, and unflinching duty. U.S. Navy personnel. Deep hypocrisy was almost lyrical. Standing on a desecrated cemetery, he spoke about honor. He spoke of sacrifice while demanding it. My viewpoint showed my entire team in position. On my operations command deck, Logan Hayes waited near a service exit with his satellite phone connected to a trusted Naval Investigative Command contact in Washington, D.C., via a live encrypted line. He was our link to the outside. Master Chief Mark Jason was near the ballroom's primary power distribution panel to divert power or fix physical overrides. Craftsmen may try. Ella Lynn was hidden behind a huge potted plant in a little alcove. Her laptop lit her face, and her fingers danced across the keyboard. Our digital warfare was her. I noticed Avery's gaze across the room. Just one almost invisible nod. It was time. Croft approached his peak. "To those who serve," he added, raising his glass. He instantly stopped, saying, "We salute you." The sound system snapped off. The large television screen behind him, which showed his company's sparkling logos and the Cole family crest, went black. The room gasped collectively. One silent second of confusion. Screen came back to life. No, company logo disappeared. It displayed the U.S. Navy seal. Both words USS Acheron were written in white block letters below it. Before anyone could process what they saw, the speakers made a sound. It wasn't music. A man's voice sounded garbled and static-laced. Voice strained with haste and disbelief. The VDR's audio logs contained Captain James Holloway's voice. Forcefully actuated siren procedure, not a drill. Refusing the command. No one who says this should be trusted. Mayday, mayday. A resounding silence followed the audio cutout. The entire room was frozen in astonishment and horror. Then video started. It was blurry black and white security camera footage from 6 years ago. It depicted the Acheron Bridge. Captain James Holloway argued with two Croft private security contractors. They grabbed him and dragged him from the command chair, struggled. Panicked whispers filled the room. The screen moved. Multiple emails, documents, and internal memoranda appeared on the screen, each highlighted to represent a single damning signature: J. Croft. A vessel seizure order, a manifest of a new non-Navy crew, a Shell Corporation bill of sale. I viewed their faces. Sophie's ideal world collapsed before her eyes. My mother had a waxy, bloodless horror face. She looked like she'd seen a ghost, and my father, Admiral Richard Morgan, appeared stone-like. His face was ruined by shocking revelation. "Turn it off," Brandon Wolfe yelled, furious and livid. Too late. "Security. Turn it off now." Final proof appeared on screen. A $10 million direct wire transfer from Croft Dynamics to my mother Margaret Cole's private account the week after Aaron disappeared. Suddenly, the ballroom's big doors opened. They didn't swing. Force opened them. Naval Criminal Investigative Service uniformed armed men filled the room. NCIS's rapid, precise movement fanning out secured the room. As a Black Hawk helicopter descended, its searchlight illuminated the deck, and the deep thrum of rotor blades filled the air outside the panoramic windows. A female officer, with colonel's eagles on her collar, she walked to the center of the gathering, her icy clear voice cutting through the tumult. "Julian Croft," she said, staring at him, "you are under arrest for conspiracy, murder, and treason against the United States of America." Two agents grabbed Croft, who was sputtering and looking confused. The colonel scrutinized my father. She stated Admiral Cole in a monotone voice. "You will accompany us to ask you about this scheme." In 30 seconds, the Cole family's legacy, which my father had sacrificed everything for, vanished. My father's shocked and betrayed gaze met mine across the room as the agents escorted him away. He opened his mouth but said nothing. I stood silently and stared at him. Silence was my verdict, louder and stronger than any judge could ever give. After the storm, the USS Aaron fell into an unsettling calm. Federal agents worked calmly after the raid. Once a theater of deceit, the vessel was now a sterilized crime scene. I stood on the terrace watching the last of the well-dressed people leave. People who had ignored me hours earlier now whispered to each other as they avoided my eyes. They fled like rats from a sinking ship. Not triumphant. I wasn't happy. I felt hollow tiredness like a soldier after a tough war. After the war, adrenaline dissipated, leaving only the dull ache of wounds. Sophie saw me leaning over the railing. Ruffled makeup and tears covered her cheeks. Her cries were not for the dead sailors or shame, for her fallen empire. "You've ruined everything," her voice was heavy with selfish grief. "Our name, my restaurant, everything. Why couldn't you stay quiet? Why always destroy everything?" I gazed at my little sister, who had lived her whole life in fake warmth. The first time I felt only distant sympathy. "I didn't destroy it, Sophie," I responded quietly yet firmly. "It was internally rotting. Just turned on the lights." My mother followed. NCIS agent gave her time to talk to me before being questioned. She marched toward me and raged. "No apology or regret. You happy now?" She rage-strickenly hissed. "You muddied your father and family. Just for your own pride. A decent daughter would never have done this." I stared at this woman who gave me life but never love. The final traces of a daughter's duty declined. A good mother never tell her child to keep quiet about a crime. I replied coldly, "Ma'am." "Ma'am," the word lingered. A subordinate addressed a senior officer. A stranger to a stranger. The wall was the ultimate barrier. The link broke. My actual allies discovered me in the peaceful tumult. Mark, Elias, and Avery approached. No congratulations or platitudes. It wasn't necessary. Simple placement by Elias, solid hand on my shoulder. Mark gave me a bottle of water. A simple but powerful gesture. Avery nodded with deep respect. I have never seen a stronger fortification than their silent cooperation. Colonel Dana Prescott, NIC's strong woman commander, arrived. She stared me in the eye like a soldier evaluating another. "Lieutenant Commander Cole," she said professionally. "You acted correctly. You kept your oath. The Navy thanks you." The simple, direct words carried more weight than any award I had ever received. They confirmed my choice. Snowden and Manning showed that whistleblowers are alone. But I knew I wasn't alone then. As the errand was hauled back to Norfolk, my decision sank in. Initial calls came from my family, lawyer. Dad wanted to see me. No, I declined. My mother wrote a lengthy letter. A masterful guilt trip and blaming. I skipped reading. Just threw it away. I tried for a lifetime to break past their heart gates. I was erecting my wall now. A self-respect wall, not hatred. Once before dawn, I stood alone on the Acheron Bridge. The metal ghost spacecraft was now silently returning home. I watched. The first sunlight colors the horizon gray and gold. The blood and name family I was born into was gone. It was then that I found myself. They tried to obliterate history. So I'll write another. The USS Aaron affair sparked global outrage in the months that followed. His investigative series earned Logan Hayes a Pulitzer Prize. Key associates of Brandon Wolfe received life sentences. My father, Admiral Richard Morgan, was demoted and a court-martial for collusion. He lost his most precious legacy. Not following the trials. The battle ended. It was my fight. My little struggling Chesapeake Bay Watchers initiative gained national attention. The Pat Tillman Foundation sent me an email one morning. They read my narrative. They saw a veteran who served and funded my entire program. With the money came hundreds of military letters, families nationwide congratulating me for representing the Acheron crew. I now understand Nee Brown's statement that vulnerability is not weakness. This is our greatest courage. Being vulnerable revealed a strength I never realized I had. An afternoon of sunshine and breeze marked our tiny dockside ceremony a year later. My chosen family attended. Mark, my lead engineer, stood alongside me. Elias and Avery, lifelong friends, stood in the little crowd. Newly restored training vessel acquired with foundation money was christened. I named her T.S. Legacy. But this legacy was different. I didn't speak much. I said, "Legacy isn't your name on a wall. It's the hope you light in someone else's heart." Afterward, Noah Carter approached me. My first mate was a confident young man who replaced the defiant, furious boy. He displayed a little hand-carved wooden plaque. On Lieutenant Commander Alex Morgan, our captain, and beneath that, inscribed in careful letters, was the name of every single kid who had come through our program. I cried as I accepted the modest, personal present. It was more valuable than a medal or promotion. Only this honor had ever mattered. The next morning, I led the legacy with the sea wind on my face and the bright morning light on my back. A new group, apprehensive and excited kids, found their spots. I stopped looking back. I anticipated the vast horizon. My voice was crisp and steady as I called the roll in the morning. "Miller, ma'am." Small boys spoke. "Chen here." A smiling teen girl replied. Each person answered with promise when I called their name. I was no longer the nameless shadow. I saw and called the names, one who recognized them. I was the beacon. I guided the ship across the bay's tranquil waters, going toward a future I had planned with a steady hand. A legacy of healing, not treachery. My narrative goes beyond phantom ships and ruined families. It's about building a legacy after ours fails. We must find our crew Y and Dawn. We all have a quiet war narrative of resilience. After sharing mine, I'd like to hear yours. Share your overcoming experience in the comments below. Every story is a lighthouse in the dark. Subscribe to Chosen Revenge for more empowering stories.